Welcome to your reset with Christiane Piano, where the purpose is to support you in releasing all that you are not, so the truth of who you really are can emerge. This is accomplished through working with the body-mind from an ontological perspective. We use various modalities to support you in supporting yourself exactly where you are, so that you may return to an experience of wholeness and ease, moment by moment. Deep reflection is one of the greatest tools through which to do this. To take a moment, to pause, assess, reflect, and literally and figuratively reset, come back to center, and move back into your one and precious life with increased clarity and purpose. Hello, this is Christiane Piano, and welcome to your Reset Reflection. This week's episode is a reflection on compassion. Now, compassion is a word described in the Oxford Dictionary is a strong feeling of sympathy for another's suffering. There's a quote by Plato that says, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle." And how does this play into BodyMind Wellbeing? Well, as I've always stated, we must begin with ourselves. So if we're referring to what Plato stated, how can you become more kind with yourself? You see, deep reflection is one of the greatest tools through which to develop compassion, ironically. As when we see the other in ourselves, we become more humane. But before we can practice this with others, we need to practice this with ourselves. Now, compassion is slightly different from empathy. You see, empathy is an understanding of shared humanity, or feelings of awareness toward other people's emotions, and an attempt to understand how they feel. Compassion, on the other hand, is an emotional response as well, and it's an emotional response that creates a desire to help. And often, it's so easy to forget that in supporting others, one of the greatest things we can do is to simply be for another. It is so easy to underestimate the power of being for another. And here we return once again to we can't be for others until we practice being for ourselves. So what makes compassion different from empathy? It creates a bit of emotional distance from the individual and situation. You have an ability to recognize someone's suffering without identifying with it. And practicing compassion increases your resilience as well as your overall well-being. So you can stay compassionate, yet maintain your personal well-being. So true compassion is about going beyond emotion or rationalization and being kind regardless. What I find similar and fascinating about the word compassion is that within the word compassion, we see the word compass. And compass and compassion share an etymological root. The earliest use of the word compass does not refer to the modern hiking compass as we know it. The word is first used to refer to the mathematical compass. You know, that simple two-pronged device that many of us remember using in grade school to measure the difference between 2 points and to draw arcs and circles. So this compass is then to determine the relationship between 2 points. And the related word compassion is about honoring the relationship between two people or between one group and another, and remembering those who suffer. It's about making the connection between the heart of my being and the heart of yours, and following that connection, even when we are filled with doubts. So a question you can ask yourself is, what is my compass? Where am I coming from? And are you aware of any armor of protection that you put in place consciously or unconsciously that creates a barrier of connection from the core of your being to another's? When you experience fear, judgment, scarcity, you notice there's a difference about someone. All of these are reactions that come up from the mind. They're defensive reactions. And defensive reactions create a barrier. It's not a seen barrier, but it's a felt, experienced barrier. So what is necessary to connect the distance? And if you begin with yourself, how have you created distance from yourself? How have you created or are presently creating distance between you and others? And here is where BodyMind Wellbeing comes into play. How can you support yourself in coming from connection? If you're not coming from wholeness, it is because you're experiencing a split between the body and the mind. And although, as I have stated in previous episodes, you may rationally understand that the body-mind are not disconnected, but how you experiencing them, your very own felt experience of yourself, will then create a sense of disconnection. And when you're coming from disconnected in body-mind, you'll fall into rationalization. I mean, if you think about it for a moment, judgment. Judgment of the self is a little more challenging to take a look at, so let's just take a look at when you judge another. To judge another, no compassion is present because you don't see yourself in the other person. To judge another person, you must see yourself above them in some way, and you're looking down on them. There are many ways about living this life, ways of being, cultures, belief systems. But if we get underneath all of that, identities, and we come back to the shared experience of simply being human, and that we never really know what is going on with another person. But if you've lived a bit, you know that it's challenging to share any level of suffering. And everyone who's walking this planet and who has come before us in their lifetime has experienced challenge. So if we want to create a world in which we live, where we see more harmony and peace and ease, we must begin with ourselves. We must ask ourselves, what is our inner compass? And what is it I need to lay down, put aside, to show up for myself in a compassionate manner? How do I judge myself? How am I unkind to myself? And where is inner work needed to come to the root of what is causing that and to create a shift to allow for an increased sense of ease, peacefulness, and compassion within? Because until we do this with ourselves, which quite honestly, from my humble perspective, takes a lifetime of practice and beginning again and again and again, bringing some humor to it, especially when we tumble and we fall and we're not proud of who we're being or how we've shown up with ourselves or another or a group of people. But the beauty is when we take moments for reflection and we're truly honest with ourselves, we can come back to resetting and starting again, owning who we're being, continuing to fertilize our own growth and do the work necessary to create a deeper understanding of ourselves, which then supports us so much in holding space for others and simply being compassionate. So no matter where you are and what you're going through at the moment, whether it's flying high and wonderful or deep, dark and challenging or somewhere in the middle, I do hope you found this reflection supportive. Feel free to share it with anyone who you think it may be supportive of, like or follow. And if you're interested in engaging in this work for yourself, feel free to contact me through fan mail that has now been activated, through my website, www.christianepiano.com, or through email, growth@christianepiano.com.